years, we're calling out this kind of crap. And we're going to keep calling it out. All right? Again, I don't talk politics on this channel, generally speaking. But I do talk about women's sports and women's basketball. The WNBA is in the middle of trying to get a CBA done. The WNBA, for the first time in the history of its existence, brought in 2.5 times the amount of fans.
Following previous coverage of Breanna Stewart's political demonstration, additional fallout continues as approximately 36 viewers expressed displeasure and departed. This outcome was anticipated. 6 years of content production have consistently involved challenging athletes who inject political messaging into professional competition. This approach represents the channel's established methodology and will persist regardless of audience reaction. Political discussion typically remains absent from sports-focused content. However, women's professional basketball demands attention specifically because the WNBA currently negotiates its collective bargaining agreement while simultaneously experiencing unprecedented growth. For the first time across its entire operational history, the league attracted double to 2.5 times its typical viewership numbers. This expansion brought numerous spectators who specifically oppose political messaging within athletic competition.
The amount of fans it's ever had. Guess what? It brought in a lot of fans like me that do not want politics in their sports. We came in to watch Caitlin Clark play. By osmosis, we've had to watch some of these other players play. And because of that, we paid a little bit closer attention besides just the Brittany Griner got locked up in Russia action.
Many arrived specifically to watch Caitlin Clark perform. Through unavoidable exposure, they've witnessed other athletes compete as well. Consequently, these viewers now pay closer attention beyond previous isolated incidents like the Brittany Griner situation involving detention in Russia, which represented the most significant women's basketball story throughout 2022. Recent events in Minneapolis involving immigration and customs enforcement operations warrant direct criticism of Dijonai Carrington, Cheryl Reeve, Natisha Heidemann, and any other individuals choosing to vocalize opinions. Losing additional subscribers seems inevitable. However, once the regular campaign commences, initial content will likely restore those departures. Perhaps different individuals, but improved audience quality results either way. Some might perceive this response as excessively harsh.
Action, which we covered and was the biggest story in 2022 that I covered on Black and White Sports. Enter in the situation in Minnesota involving ICE. And yeah, I'm right here to call out Dijonai Carrington and Cheryl Reeve and Heidemann and anybody else that wants to run their mouth. And I can lose another 30.
However, these athletes chose to speak publicly, creating the obligation to address their statements. Breanna Stewart issued additional remarks following her previous demonstration, apparently determining that damaging Unrivaled's commercial prospects with her Abolish ICE display proved insufficient. She evidently wanted to ensure complete destruction of the enterprise, a basketball venture already struggling with roughly 80,000 viewership figures while operating on minimal viability. Why not completely terminate its existence? Unrivaled co-founder and Players Association Vice President Breanna Stewart displayed signage reading Abolish ICE before Saturday's 76-71 victory over Vinyl. Understanding my principles and beliefs throughout yesterday, I experienced revulsion, Stewart stated afterward. Everything visible on Instagram and across news outlets shows we're currently driven by animosity rather than compassion. I wanted to convey a straightforward message: abolish ICE. Regarding numerous individuals killed by undocumented immigrants, this athlete maintained complete silence throughout those tragedies.
Run their mouth. And I can lose another 36 subscribers. By the way, the moment the season tips off, the first video, I'll get those subscribers back. Maybe not those, but that's okay. That makes my ratio better. You might be like, Rhodes, you're coming a little hard. Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't ask these people to run their mouth, but now that they did, well, I'm talking about it. So Breanna Stewart has come out and she's made
Silence persisted. The statement supposedly means uplifting families and communities through policies supporting families and communities instead of promoting fear and violence. When human existence faces jeopardy, nothing else matters. She proceeded discussing her spouse. It's frightening, Stewart added. You witness it across social platforms. You observe families separating, communities fracturing.
Well, I'm talking about it. So Breonna Stewart has come out and she's made some further comments because ending Unrivaled's business yesterday with her abolish ICE stunt wasn't enough. She wanted to make sure she put the business right out of its misery. The basketball league that's literally drawn like 80,000 viewers, that was already beeping on life support. Nah, let's just go ahead and unplug it.
Children become involved. It's terrible in every conceivable way being married to Marta. It affects us personally. We're pursuing her citizenship. She holds legal permanent residency and everything. That represents the issue. It's demonstrably false. If someone possesses legal permanent resident status, deportation isn't occurring. This exemplifies why these enforcement measures require implementation. Reform needs accomplishment.
Go ahead and unplug it. Unrivaled's co-founder and WNBPA Vice President Breonna Stewart led the way with a sign that read "Abolish ICE" before the missed 76-71 win over the Vinyl on Saturday. Quote, knowing what my values are and what I stand for, really all day yesterday I was disgusted, Stewart said post-game. Everything you see on IG and in the news were so fueled by hate right now.
The absurdity of basketball athletes attempting to dictate which laws merit obedience and how conduct should proceed. What would society accomplish without their guidance? Most Minnesota roster members currently compete elsewhere outside Minneapolis during the WNBA offseason. Nevertheless, numerous players, including Unrivaled co-founder Nafisa Collier and Minnesota guard Natisha Heidemann, utilize social platforms expressing community support. Minnesota's head coach and basketball operations president Cheryl Reeve posted on X, "This is my city, #IC out. Congratulations on earning thumbnail placement. Don't become desensitized to Donald Trump having his mass icy criminals murder people on America's streets," Minnesota guard DJ Carrington wrote on Instagram. Never normalize this evil.
IG and in the news were so fueled by hate right now instead of love. I wanted to have a simple message of, quote, abolish ICE. Of all the people that had been killed by illegal aliens, and coward, your mouth has been shut the whole time. Really? Laken Riley, Georgia, dead. I don't want to hear it. Which means to uplift families.
The sickness you feel is your conscience. We lose that, we are nothing. Additional discussion involves Tyrese Halliburton, though that tangent doesn't warrant elaboration here. The situation defies belief. A social media post recently appeared displaying names of American citizens, legal residents murdered by undocumented immigrants. Not one of these women's basketball players acknowledged those victims. Not a single statement emerged. Nothing brave, stunning, or courageous exists in their selective outrage. Dijonai Carrington openly expresses opinions without addressing documented tragedies.
Families and communities having policies to uplift families and communities instead of fueling fear and violence. When human lives are at stake, it's bigger than anything else. She goes on to talk about her wife. It's scary, Stewart added. You see it on social media. You see it splitting up families, dissecting communities. Kids are being involved. It's worst in all ways. To be married to Marta.
If someone resides here legally, concern doesn't apply. Months upon months of repeated messaging advised individuals to return to origin countries before entering legally through proper channels. Whose responsibility exists for failing to depart voluntarily? The citizens these athletes defend in Minnesota don't reciprocate that concern. Communities receiving their advocacy show minimal appreciation for their intervention. Some fellow content creators likely wonder about this direct approach. The answer remains affirmative. This won't pass without challenge.
It on like her Instagram, has she done this on like her Twitter, TikTok, or anything, or somewhere like that? But those of you guys who might not know, and who might be behind in the situation that's took place yesterday. Let me get you guys caught up real quick. Let's head on over to X and play this. So this is the situation that occurred yesterday with Breonna Stewart. She pulled up to the Unrivaled game and held up this sign, abolish ICE. A lot of people feel like she shouldn't have did what she did. I feel as if she definitely shouldn't have did it. Not
6 years of dedicated effort confronting problematic behavior won't be abandoned now. The WNBA chose entering this territory. These players opted to wade into these discussions. They'll face criticism every single instance. Content will predominantly focus on athletic competition. Absolutely. However, they initiated this trajectory, not the reverse.
Not on TV, because at the end of the day, people come to watch basketball. People really, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people have mixed feelings about this ICE stuff, bro. And if we all are like rooting for the same cause, and that is good basketball, we all got to hear both sides. And this is one of them situations where you just got to hear both sides out, and I feel like this is actually going to do more harm than it is good to the current state of the WNBA and the current state of.
The fundamental question persists. Should professional athletes leverage their platforms for political advocacy during competition? When does athletic performance separate from political messaging? These players made their choice to blur those boundaries. That decision invites scrutiny and response from audiences who entered the sport specifically to escape political discourse. The league faces crucial negotiations regarding its collective bargaining agreement while simultaneously experiencing record growth. This represents perhaps the worst possible timing for divisive political demonstrations that alienate significant portions of newly acquired viewership. Whether intentional or negligent, these actions jeopardize the league's financial stability during a critical expansion phase.
In the current state of Unrivaled, we know that they have been going through ups and downs with ratings and stuff like that. We still don't have a CBA agreement signed. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just from my knowledge of the WNBA and pissing fans off, you really don't want to piss them off because they're going to hit you where it hurt. I can't speak for other sports. I can definitely speak on my experience with covering the WNBA, and this definitely pissed a lot of fans off. But Breonna Stewart did.
Athletes possess the same constitutional rights as any citizen to express political opinions. However, exercising those rights during professional competition, especially when wearing organizational uniforms or utilizing team platforms, inevitably generates consequences. Those consequences include criticism from audiences who disagree with the messaging or simply oppose mixing athletics with politics entirely. The pattern demonstrates selective moral outrage. Certain tragedies receive passionate responses while others get completely ignored. This inconsistency undermines credibility and suggests motivation stems from political alignment rather than genuine humanitarian concern. If protecting innocent lives truly matters above all else, that principle should apply universally regardless of perpetrator identity or victim demographics.
She definitely did respond to all of this, and in a press conference that she did, she told everybody how she feel, man. And she let it be known yesterday, during her press conference. And this is it in its entirety. Let's listen.
Thank you both for joining. We'll go ahead and get started with questions from Nikias in the front row.
Hi, y'all. Congratulations on the win. Before getting into the basketball, Stuart, you came out in the intros with the message.
Legal immigration versus illegal entry represents an established distinction within American law. Enforcement of existing statutes doesn't constitute unprecedented authoritarianism. Every sovereign nation maintains immigration controls and border security. Characterizing routine enforcement operations as evil or murder stretches language beyond reasonable interpretation. Athletes certainly can advocate for immigration reform or alternative enforcement approaches. However, inflammatory rhetoric comparing legal operations to criminal activity damages constructive dialogue and alienates potential allies who might otherwise support reasonable policy modifications. The commercial implications cannot be ignored.
Came out in the intros with the message. When did you know you were going to do that? And do you ever feel any kind of pressure to make statements with injustice like this, or does it kind of just come to you naturally now?
I think that, knowing what my values are and what I stand for, I think that really all day yesterday I was kind of just disgusted from everything that you see on Instagram and in the news, and we're so fueled by hate right now, and it's
Unrivaled struggles attracting viewers despite featuring elite talent. Introducing divisive political content guarantees further audience erosion. Basketball fans seeking escape from political discourse will simply redirect their attention elsewhere. This doesn't represent censorship or suppression, it reflects basic market dynamics. Entertainment products succeeding by delivering what audiences want rather than lecturing them about political positions. Professional sports leagues historically maintain political neutrality for sound business reasons. Athletes competed, fans watched, everyone benefited.
So fueled by hate right now and instead of love. So I wanted to kind of have a simple message of, abolish ICE, which means to uplift families and communities instead of, having policies to uplift families and communities instead of fueling fear and violence. I think that, when human lives are at stake, it's bigger than anything else. So to have that simple message before the game was important to me, and knowing that, everyone.
Recent trends toward increased activism generate backlash precisely because audiences seek entertainment and distraction rather than political advocacy. Whether this shift proves sustainable remains uncertain, but early indicators suggest significant portions of viewership reject mixing athletics with political messaging. The situation ultimately demonstrates consequences of choice. Athletes chose speaking publicly about politically contentious topics. Audiences retain the choice responding with support, criticism, or disengagement. Neither party can claim victimhood when these predictable dynamics unfold. Actions generate reactions.
And knowing that, everyone here is feeling that way, one way or another, and it was just a perfect time.
Jamil on Zoom.
Brianna, I just am curious, in this moment where there's so much political turmoil happening in our country, what do you feel is the responsibility of not just yourself, but...
That's simply how public discourse functions within democratic societies. Recent events at an unrivaled basketball game sparked significant conversation across social media platforms. Breanna Stewart appeared at the venue carrying a sign reading "Abolish ICE," which generated divided reactions from fans and observers. The nation finds itself in a polarized state currently, and what's unfolding in Minnesota carries tremendous weight and sadness. However, mixing political activism with athletic competition creates situations requiring difficult discussions that make many people uncomfortable. Questions arose about whether Stewart might have chosen alternative venues for her statement, perhaps through Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or other digital channels. The criticism she encountered potentially would have been less intense had she utilized personal social media accounts instead of displaying the message during televised athletic competition.
Of not just yourself, but players in general across the leagues, what is their responsibility, or what do you think is their responsibility in terms of what can be done in this moment?
Yeah, I think doing whatever you can to help your community. Obviously, Minnesota is the place that everyone's seeing that's in crisis, but it's happening in many more cities than just one. And knowing the right people to reach out to, your local.
For those unfamiliar with yesterday's incident, here's what transpired. Stewart arrived at the unrivaled contest, holding her "Abolish ICE" sign prominently. Numerous individuals believe her chosen method and timing missed the mark. Broadcasting this message during the game seemed problematic given that audiences tune in specifically for basketball entertainment. The immigration enforcement topic divides people sharply, and when everyone supposedly rallies around quality basketball as common ground, hearing multiple perspectives becomes essential. This represents exactly the type of situation demanding consideration of opposing viewpoints. Concerns exist that this action may generate more negative consequences than positive outcomes.